Welcome to the Fast Beyond 50 podcast. This is the first time I am flying solo. We've got an awesome guest. And unfortunately, Brad has got some family things that he needs to attend to. And like I said to him, sooner or later, one has got to learn how to do these things on their own. So here I am. I've got a fabulous guest in David Hoskins. He is on a hot streak of note. I think it's 6 PBs, but I'll let him correct me on that, on a range of distances from 5 to 21 Ks. So really having a fantastic 2025. And we're going to unpack that. This is our member call podcast. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm getting tired of my own voice already. So I'm going to bring David in now, and I hope you are going to enjoy listening to this as much as I'm going to enjoy chatting to David. So, David, welcome onto the Fast Beyond 50 podcast.
Hey, Lindsey, thanks very much. I'm delighted to be here. I'm a pretty avid follower of you guys, so I was honoured to be asked to talk to you.
Okay, brilliant. So, listen, I promised before the call that we weren't going to talk about rugby, so we won't. But David is a Kiwi, born in New Zealand, and now living in Denmark, and has been doing so for many, many years. So, David, just talk to us a little bit about your background, a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your running journey. Then we will jump into the current.
Sure. Well, as you say, I grew up in New Zealand over 50 years ago, and I lived in an environment, went to a school that was really into sports. It was one of those traditional boys' schools that our countries are so familiar with. And it was great. It was a great environment for me to grow up in. I did lots of sports. So I would say that I am a sort of lifetime or lifelong runner. The sports I did were rugby, mainly a bit of tennis, and then some track as well. And actually some of my favorite sporting memories, funnily enough, are of track, especially an awesome relay experience, 4x100, that we had in my final year at secondary school.
I was going to ask if it was like 800 or longer, but no, it turns out you were a sprinter. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it was in those days, but I mean, I was a little bit of a jack of all trades. So yes, I was in the 4x100 team, but I was certainly not the fastest. And I did dabble in 400 and 1500 and things like that. So it was experimentation. But yeah, I think I got a lot of I think my biggest quality, certainly then and probably still now, is I'm not afraid of working hard. So I was always really good at training, actually, and at doing the hard work, at pushing myself and doing the repeats and things like that. And I still today, actually, I can feel that that's something that I'm quite comfortable doing.
And when did the sort of bug bite to move to the longer distances in adulthood? Have you been active through most of your adult life, or is running fairly new?
Yeah,
hobby?
well, it is and it isn't. So in my 20s, I didn't do a lot of structured sport, or probably 20s and 30s. So I did things like I dabbled in squash, really purely at a social level. And the thing about squash is I really like the high intensity of it. So I like getting the heart rate up there, and I liked, getting a good sweat on and really feeling exhausted at the end of the session. But it was all pretty unstructured. And then as I was approaching 40, a good friend of mine, it was just, it's one of those funny things where someone makes a remark to you and it really gets hold. And he said something about, hey, do you want to try a marathon? And then I thought about that for a couple of days and thought, hey, why not? Why not? So then he helped me find this training program or training philosophy. And to cut a long story short, I then trained up for a marathon over the course of about a year. So just after I turned 40, I did 4 marathons in the space of 2 years. Maybe we can come back to this later, but basically then I just lost interest. I burned out. Then after that, I then went back to that sort of unstructured form of staying active. I mean, yes, I have always been active, but again, for many years it was really unstructured. And if I just get, really fast forward to more or less to today, then a couple of years ago, again, one of those remarks, this time by my two kids, Zach and Johanna, said, "Hey, why don't we all do the Copenhagen half marathon?" And thought, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. We'll have a nice day. It's becoming a huge event. It's really popular.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So that was in 2023. I took out my old training program from the old marathon days, like 15 years earlier, and worked my way up to the half marathon. It went okay. I did 1:38, but really tanked at 16 Ks. I really tanked, and the last 5 Ks were awful. But I still got a bit of the bug for running. I found it again. I found that real passion for running, and then I decided to sign up for these the series of half marathons in Europe called the Super Halves, which is now a number of half marathons around Europe, different awesome cities, and Copenhagen is one of those. And so I've just recently completed the Super Halves. So 2 years later.
So now that does kind of bring us into 2025 and what you've done. So I think let's dive into that. I think it was 6. Was it 6 or 7? Yeah, six PBs across.
7 now.
So it is 7 now because you've just recently done another one.
Yeah.
So talk us through those PBs. Give us some times. You are. I mean, I don't know. I should have asked you this offline. You are between 55 and 60, so I'm not entirely sure where you slot in there. But the reality is that sure, you haven't been a very focused runner through your whole life, but you certainly 15 years after your marathons, at least, you are now smashing PBs, and certainly from 2023 to now, your half marathon time has improved by over 10 minutes over 2 years, which is just too impressive. So talk us through the 5, 10, and 21K PBs. I think your 21K PB you've broken 3 times this year, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe your story to tell. So you can brag a little bit now, and then we'll start to unpack the magic.
Awesome. We all love a good brag. So starting back in 2023 with that 1:38, and I was really happy with that time. The next half marathon I did was roughly 6 months later in Prague. And this time I actually trained in a bit more of a structured, I decided to do some long runs leading up to the Prague one.
Okay.
I think I did a couple of 18 Ks and 20 Ks. And then, so Prague is in April, fantastic event. It was super hot that day, and coming out of the Scandinavian winter, that was a bit of a shock. We're talking a jump in at least 15-degree temperatures from what I've been used to. So time-wise, I was, I think, 1:47, right? So I lost 10 minutes. And yes, I know that a lot of that can be attributed.
Let me jump in there. Like a lot of that can be. I know there's some other reasons too, but just so that people understand that heat and altitude are the two biggest stresses on performance. And altitude can going from high altitude to low altitude can give a 4% improvement in performance, and obviously the other way around. And hot and humid has the same impact. So yes, some of that would have 100% been down to the conditions, but I think you're going to say some of it was for other reasons.
Yeah, I definitely think some of it was to do with the heat. I hadn't been used to training in the heat, but it just got me thinking. I thought, well, actually, I feel as though I'm in really good shape. I feel as though there are a lot of things that were beginning to just the whole. I was quite comfortable at the distance. I'd really enjoyed the training. There are a lot of similarities to the principles that you guys follow in terms of mixing up the training, high intensity with low intensity, things like that. We can come back to that. But so I really felt that I was actually in good shape. So I thought something's not right. I did feel that the 10-minute difference was more than just the heat. So then I started looking around because I had got the running bug, and I found you guys online, and I just really liked what you, Lindsey, had to say, and really liked your YouTube videos from all of your team. So then I jumped on your platform. So yeah, last year. So
then that brings us to now. Yeah. So give us some of those times, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah. So actually, exactly a year ago was Valencia half marathon, another amazing event. It's just so good, these super halves, and they're so well organized and such great atmosphere. And it was pouring down with rain. So leading up to that, I should say that I had followed one of your programs or more. I'd done a bridging 10K program before I started on the 12-week half marathon program, and it really spoke to me. The structure of your 10K program. I liked the high intensity stuff. I liked the easy runs and things like that. So that was kind of fun when I did the time trials and things like that. So the time trials for my 5Ks were just outside 20 minutes last year in 24, all of them. And then I got to Valencia and I got just under 1:34, I think 1 hour 34. So I took a whole lot of time off the Prague time, which was 1:47, and beat the Copenhagen time from a year ago. So I was really happy with that progress. But sort of felt, okay, I think there's more. I think I can do more here. And I was just really enjoying it. So it's just a matter of sticking at it. So then leading into 2025, I had 2 more of the super halves left. So that was Lisbon in March, and then Cardiff, which was a few weeks ago. So Lisbon, up to that, I did a couple of time trials, and so for the first time, I broke 20 in 5K, and I think that was in February in the freezing cold of the Danish winter. So that was kind of fun. Then I went to Lisbon and got 1 hour 30 seconds.
Wow.
So
almost,
just outside.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. And I remember having a few lead-in chats with actually specifically Shona and Ntutu. And they believed in me. This is leading up to Lisbon, saying, I think you're on track for under 1:30. So of course, when I didn't get 1:30, although I was delighted with the time. I thought, I think maybe. So after that, in early June, there was a huge event here in Denmark called the Royal Run, which is it's a nationwide thing where they hold a lot of consecutive 10K events around the country. So that's officially measured, and timing-wise, that was a really good event to work up to. So I made that a focus event. So for that, I broke 40, smashed 40, got 39:20.
Brilliant.
So I think that was the 3rd PB, maybe 4th, because I think actually I broke 2 5K time trials in there. At just taking a few seconds off each time. So then another 5K time trial in August where I took more off. So think I'm around 1930, around there at the moment. And then leading up to Cardiff, well, actually, no, first of all, there was an awesome half marathon in Budapest, Hungary, not part of the super half, but it's one that I've done now a couple of times with various members of my family, first my daughter and now my son. And that I did break 130. So I got under 129 actually, and that was in the beginning of September. And then the most recent one was Cardiff. That was my last super half event. And there I got under 128. So it took another minute off the half marathon there.
Yeah, so look, that's a magic progression. Well done. Honestly, that's yeah, I mean, it's reward for sheer consistency, because that really is what you've been. So if we walk back a little bit, you have followed plans before, and the plans that you followed, I mean, they also incorporated the mix. So what do you kind of think was the major change? You know, if the philosophies were fairly similar, what were the kind of little nuanced changes that you experienced that you feel like have really led to, I mean, a massive breakthrough, you know, to go from 137 to 120, 138 to 127, that's, yeah, that's running. So very, very, very good time. And yeah, I think just for everybody out there, that puts you in 7th place in your age group in one of the super halves. I mean, that's, yeah, it's a very, very good performance. So well done.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, well, actually, the answer is pretty easy, and that is easy runs. I actually began to understand what that was. So, like I say, that difference when I did that Copenhagen half marathon in 2023, the philosophy I was following was based on there was quite a lot of intensity work, and the philosophy was you actually only needed to run for maximum 1 hour.
Okay.
And you know, maybe there's some truth in that, but actually, you know, with the programs that you guys have, the easy runs are typically longer, and the longer runs are a lot longer than that. And they have made the difference. And it's so embracing exactly what an easy run is and what a long run is. And that took me a while. But when you finally get that right pace, when you get the feel for what an easy run is, and you embrace it. So if I look back when I did marathons in my early 40s, right, the philosophy was, yes, I did those 1 hour, maybe some of them were 75 minutes or something like that. They were all hard. You know, they were all in that slightly tempo run zone. And so you'd come back and you can handle it in your 40s, but you were tired. And so the big difference now is at the end of an easy run, whether it's a 1 hour or 1 hour 25, I come home and I'm not tired. I've worked. I've had a really good run. I can feel that it's done something for me, but I'm not tired. And then the same with the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, and to unpack that a little bit, and I think this is, you know, because Coach Parry as a business is, you know, we talk about easy runs and running easy enough, you know, we hammer on it. People do mistake in that philosophy for we only believe in easy runs. But the key to the easy runs is very much in what you've said. But there's an important part that people also miss. So the easy runs allow you to do the volume that you need to do, and they give you the capacity to sustain the hard runs. Okay, so we certainly don't advocate one pace only easy running, um, and I think that's kind of the one area where people fail to. But if you run slow, it's going to make you slow. No, so the running slow, or not slow, that's bad term to use. The running easy, which a lot of people mistaken for running slow, which is very relative to where you are at as a individual. And also for people listening on the call, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't really understand what these paces mean. So for a 127 half marathon, I'm gonna give you some examples, because it's not about being slow. It's about it being easy. So, and that's relative to everybody. So you, as a 127 marathoner, are probably running somewhere between 4:45 and 5:05. Now, the pace isn't so important, and it shouldn't be a target focus. But I just use that for an example so people can see, like, actually a 127 half marathon relative to a 1:45 half marathoner runs their easy runs quite fast. Okay. Um, but what it does is exactly what you said. It allowed you to run much further, still feeling comfortable, getting home, feeling like you've done something. So you've gotten something out of it, but kind of feeling like you can do more. And then, very importantly, when you got to hard day or tempo day, you had gas and you could really do those workouts well, really build up your range of motion, really build up your musculoskeletal coordination. Your anaerobic system develops very, very quickly, but you cannot sustain those workouts without the easy and the long. And then the last thing that I want to touch on from a training point of view, and then I want to actually talk a little bit about race day and how you converted your 5 and 10 into pretty equivalent. So that's the other really nice thing about your story, is that you've been able to convert your 5s into your 10s, into your 21s, which is not usual. Most people are relatively better on one end of the scale than the other. So yeah, I want to unpack that a little bit. But really, your ability to give yourself the capacity to, I want to use the word survive. I mean, that's it's a bit melodramatic, but to survive those hard efforts. And then the big kicker here is that it's been over 12 months of consistent training. And again, those easy runs and the long runs done at the right intensity. And that's really what you are saying, is that once you understood what that meant, it has allowed you to train consistently, uninterrupted, and that has really driven the improvement in your running. So yeah, sorry, you wanted to say something, and then I'm going to jump into race day.
So about just unpacking a little bit more about the easy runs. A few months ago, I noticed something was happening. Well, actually, the whole time I could see, as I got fitter and understood what an easy run was, then of course the pace does naturally increase at the same heart rate, because I'm a bit of a data freak. I wear a chest strap most of the time for most of my runs, and check out the numbers and things like that. So I could see progression. So I could see that at similar heart rates, my pace was getting faster. And so for me, I can peg an easy run. It's around 130 to 135, 136 beats per minute. And a long run, I try and keep under 130. So that's my personal guideline. So what happened a couple of months ago was I was probably hitting 135, 134, 135 beats per minute average over an easy run. And my pace was picking up. And you know what? I started to feel more tired. I started to feel a bit more jaded over a longer period of time. Let's say it was a couple of weeks. So I wrote into the forum, and I think it was Jamie who answered that particular one, and said, look, even though I'm still theoretically in the easy zone, I just feel that I'm just a bit too tired. So it feels at the moment as though actually I need to go towards the lower end of the 75 to 85%. So I probably needed to, because I was aiming for 80%, right, of the threshold heart rate. So then I pegged it back to, like actually 75 or 77%. So then I rebound that sensation of after an easy run. I felt good still. I'd still worked hard enough, and it didn't impact the next day's training. So it was quite interesting that as that progression, and maybe it's also a psychological thing, you think you should be getting faster, so there's something in you that pushes you a bit. So I just had to reset a little and also take the ego out of it.
100%, and there is a line. So there's always this line where the eccentric load, the force with which you're hitting the ground, gets you to a point where you are still aerobic, but the force just gets to the point where it starts to cause fatigue and damage in the muscles. And this is just such an important thing. So yes, if you are aerobic from 130 to 136, you are still aerobic at 130. It's human nature to think that your biggest benefit's going to come at 135. But the reality is that the small advantage you get aerobically out of that being at 135 to 137 instead of 130 to 132 is negated by that fatigue and then the risk of hurting yourself when you do your high intensity session. So yeah, thanks. That is just such good insight. And look, I really need to get out of the habit. I prescribe in speed because it's just such an easy thing to measure, and because very few people use a heart rate monitor properly like you are doing. But it will always be better to use a heart rate monitor and use it like you're using it, because that's a real reflection of what's happening inside. The paces that we guesstimate based on your current ability kind of put you in the same place, but that is an educated guess. Your heart rate it's the right number. So for easy and long runs, I'm a huge advocate of using a chest strap to control that intensity. Now, a place where I don't like using a chest strap is or any heart rate is on race day. So yeah, I mean, tell us the secret, particularly in the half marathons. Like how did you so successfully translate and I'm trying to ask this question without giving away the answer, because most people are so poor at it, and that's why almost everyone tends to be way better in relative terms at 5 than they are at 21. And there's a key to this. And so talk to us how you were able to take your 5 and be very close, in fact, slightly better over 10K than you are over 5Ks. And then 21K is a really good translation from that to 21. And I suspect with your most recent 21, that if you went back to racing 10s, you'd be a little bit faster. But anyway, that line is a good line.
Yeah, well, I'm still discovering it, Lindsey. But I have learned a lot over the last couple of years. And again, one of the things that you guys talk about in terms of your time trials and the value of them is, even though it's only a 5K, right, you can learn so much about pacing from doing a 5K and doing it regularly. And that's why it's great to do them every month or every 8 weeks or whatever, as well as the intervals. I've got to say that pacing intervals also teaches you a lot. So say if you have a 6x1K interval session, for example, learning over time, repeating that session so that you can do all of those 6 repeats at the same pace, or whether it's an 800 meters or the 12x400 meters, which is another session that you guys have in your program. And I've worked on that throughout, trying to be consistent with all of those repeats, making them, as close as I can, the same pace the whole time. So that's, once you start learning that discipline, it all just carries over to the longer distances. There's something in your head, like, yeah.
And some people, it comes very naturally to some people, but it is a very learnable skill. But not everyone can learn it. And I can tell you that it's one of the things that really differentiates really good runners from okay runners. So to your point on the 5K, So a 5K is more forgiving. But if you analyze your 5Ks and you are generally running slower, particularly in kilometer 5. So it's quite normal in a 5K, just because you are very close to VO2 max, to be very fast 1K. Next 2K is pretty much where you want to be. 4th K a little bit down, 5K up. But if you are finding that kilometer 3, kilometer 4, kilometer 5 are slowly tanking, the 5K is more forgiving because it's over quicker. But as soon as you get to 21s and beyond, you will have the experience that you had when you blew up at 16Ks in that first half marathon. And suddenly 5Ks to carry on when you've blown up is huge. So the one, and then the kind of last element of it is that fine, in a 5K and a 10K, you actually also feel quite quickly when you've gone too fast. In a 21, that feeling comes well after halfway. So kind of what tricks do you use to have the discipline to pace those first 14 kilometers well, so that you can run the last 7Ks more on feel and run them well? Because, even once you've learned good pacing, the further you run, the more you actually need to be a bit disciplined in the beginning, because your relative effort, a marathon, when you're super fit, can often, the first 10Ks feels like you messing around. But if you don't have that feeling, you're going to pay for it later. So what are some of the tricks that you use to dial that in?
If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsey and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K, and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now, or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
Well, now that you mentioned marathon, if I look back at the marathons I did when I was in my early 40s, if I remember correctly, I think I blew up in all of them, all 4 of them. So, that sits in you, right? That experience sits with you. And it's just not pleasant. So even though your time might be okay, like, going back to the half marathon I did in 2023, the time was okay, but the experience wasn't. And that's a real funny, that's a weird situation, that. And actually my goal for Prague, which was 6 months later, was number one, I want to enjoy it. Prague's a beautiful city, and I thought it was an amazing place to do a half marathon, and just the general atmosphere. I want to enjoy it, number one. So even though my time was, 10 minutes slower than the previous half marathon, I did actually achieve my goal of enjoying it still, even though the last 5Ks were really, really hard. So, but all of that, when I then analyze how it went, was a learning experience. So it's like, okay, I will not do that next time. I did go out too fast. I didn't think carefully enough about my split times at, especially the first 5Ks, actually, first 5 to 7Ks.
Yeah.
I wasn't careful enough there. So the next time I went out, that was 1 year ago in Valencia, I was very careful. And I think actually I posted a video question to you and Brad, because I was trying to find, what is that, what pace should I go out at? I think your answer came after the event, but I mean, just asking the question actually helps, right? It just,
yes,
it starts to give you that discipline of, okay, what pace should I find? And so I was careful. I went out and I absolutely loved the event, loved every second of the run. And the last 1.5 to 2Ks, my pace was 4 minutes a kilometer.
Oh wow, okay, wonderful.
So I had, I was really careful.
And
so
what a good feeling. Like I often tell my people that if you can finish a race feeling like you left something out there, the reality is that you probably left less than you think. but it's that positivity that you have when you are crushing those last 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers, that just leaves you with a much better feeling of wanting to go back. So that's kind of what I try and leave with people when they run a race.
Exactly, and that's one of those situations where you really feel that success breeds success, because yes, you feel, oh, there was something left there. Okay, I was really pushing the last couple of kilometers, but hey, what if I had actually run slightly faster split times earlier than that? Then I wouldn't have needed to push those last couple of Ks. And so then over the winter a year ago, then I thought about that and worked towards the Lisbon half marathon, and did go out faster, and that was the one where I got just outside 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't have any crises along the way, so that was really nice. It's just your memory of the event is so much nicer when you don't have crises, when you don't tank
100%.
at 16 Ks.
Yeah. Yes.
So other
All
than
right.
that,
So look, so I mean, you've made some serious improvements. So let's talk a little bit into like what next. What kind of other goals have you got left? And then I've asked you a lot of questions. Have you got any questions that you want to ask me?
Well, this actually does lead into my first question. It's exactly that. So now that you know a little bit more about me, what would you recommend? I mean, there's always the easy answer is, oh, let's do some marathons. And I know that the culture of a lot of Coach Parry members is it's marathon based. A lot of ultra runners, which I just think is awesome. And and I seem to understand that the South African mentality is it's all about the marathon and longer. But so I'd like to hear what you think. So now that you know more about me, what would you recommend as a next step?
So look, so let's start with where you are now, this 127. So based on this 127, okay, and we have to differentiate this slightly, because I have this conversation often with people. I'm the official coach for an ultra marathon in South Africa, and so people just assume I'm I try and push people further, but that's not true. I really like so I love running. I grew up running. I've been running since I was 5 years old. I have almost lost the ability to explore the boundaries of my performance. But I'm still excited by that kind of concept and that thought. So I typically try and encourage people to try and explore their performance where they are as far as possible until they get to that point of diminishing returns where the massive efforts are only leading to really tiny incremental changes. Yes, you might still have another breakthrough performance somewhere, but the reality is that typically signals when you are getting, and that's the point at which I say, like, if running further is something that piques your interest, that's typically when I tell people, okay, let's look at it. Okay. Of course, at 55 to 60, I mean, just looking at your times and looking at the journey here, it's very hard to say how much more you can go. I kind of have a feeling you could get to 125, but it starts to get difficult now. I think you'd probably find, like, you're looking at between 30 and 40-second improvement will be a lot from here. There may be one more big one. That's always very difficult to like really pin a finger on. But this half at the moment is your best relative performance. Okay, so taking that half into account, you can certainly go under 19 for 5Ks, and pretty much like bang on 39. So let's say you could go 38 something. I'm pretty sure you could go 38 something for 10Ks, and maybe a little bit quicker. And of course, if you do that in those, that would then also lead me to believe you could go. And I do. I genuinely feel like you could go to 125. Now, yeah, so that's the first part of the thing is, like, have you kind of reached the ceiling where you are? And from an excitement point of view that gets you driving, gets you pushing hard, does that actually interest you and excite you? So that the answer to that question has to be yes, because as you get closer to that 125, it's going to get a little tougher. And then it is like, okay, well, how badly do you want to run a marathon? And do you want it to be a fast marathon? Because if you do, right now, you're sitting kind of 303. Now, 303 means I reckon you could go under 3, but 3 minutes is more than people realize. It's certainly not it's not an insignificant improvement to go from 303 to 259. So it's definitely possible. And I feel like Europe really lends itself to give you the routes that you need to also make that possible. So that's kind of how I would look at it. I'd go like, right, you know, one big advantage that you've got, okay, is that in my experience, it's not true for everybody. There are people that have been fast and stay fast and will always be fast. And then there are the majority of us that if we run for decades, we start to unravel at some point. Okay. But what I find about people that go through what you're going through now, when when they haven't squeezed the lemon, I mean, you've been active your whole life, but in a healthy way. And so I feel like that means that you've got more juice to squeeze. But have you got enough juice to squeeze to go for another 5 years, 3 years, 8 years? I don't know the answer to that question. And anybody who tells you they do is lying. I worked at a university for so many years, and I'd get people bringing me their 9 and 12-year-olds, and I must tell them if they're going to be a superstar. And I'm like, I haven't got any way of telling you how good this kid is eventually going to be. And it's a little bit like that with you. But there's definitely some improvement in the next year to 2, possibly to 5, maybe as far as 7. But I think that I feel like that would really be getting out there. So in short, I think you could get better at the short stuff, and you can definitely run a really fast marathon. And then the last thing that I'll put in front of you is that you could take like a hybrid look at it and go, okay, I want to run 1 marathon a year. So I'm going to do that towards the back end of every year. And then I'm going to take, 2-3 weeks off after every marathon when the winter's at its harshest, to rejuvenate and then get going. And I'll dedicate the first sort of 7-8 months of the year to being better at 5, 10, 21. So that would be your kind of hybrid approach. So hopefully I haven't given you an answer, but I've hopefully given you enough to think about, to make a decision that keeps you motivated, because that's actually that's the key really. It's like, I think you'll keep improving while you stay motivated for the next good few years.
Okay, that does actually help a lot. It's given me some really good ideas. I think I like the idea of aiming for 1 marathon, but I really like the idea of trying to improve in the other distances. And I do feel that there's something to come in the shorter distances as well. And so it'd be quite fun to try that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty thrilled that you are on that journey with us. I mean, honestly, it's running's a funny thing. I don't work with elite athletes anymore, mostly because I get this exactly the same satisfaction out of whether you run a 127 and have improved by over 10 minutes in a year, that I do from someone who has run their first half in 3:05 and then comes back and does their next one in 2:59. And obviously, elites are a small bunch, very not that they are demanding, sorry, that's going to come out wrong, but because of just the nature of how you need to coach them, it limits your ability to interact with bigger numbers of people. So super exciting working with people like you. Yeah, and I'm enjoying seeing how much you improve. So thanks for joining us. It's been a very interesting pod for me. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you get on in the next 12 months.
Oh, well, thanks so much. It's been great to talk to you. And as I say, I really enjoy following all of your content and the discussions that you have between yourselves and with your guests on the podcast. It's great. Hey, can I ask
Awesome.
one specific
Yes.
question?
No, of course. Yeah, for sure.
So, before my question was more high level. So a couple of specific ones I have actually, if that's okay.
Yes.
One is
No,
about
go for it.
super shoes. So I just run in shoes, right? I just run in shoes at the moment that feel good, and there's nothing particularly special about them. But the whole super shoe thing, and for me, is there like a minute to gain if I got a pair of super shoes?
The answer is yes. So look, I'm very confident. The thing about the super shoes is it's a little bit less about pace and more about biomechanics. But I'd be very surprised at the speeds that you're running at and the improvement that you've made, that your biomechanics now would have you very rear foot dominant. So if you're very rear foot dominant, and hitting the ground quite hard with your heels, then then the super shoe has limited advantage. I think it still does, but I'd be very wary of using it for a marathon because it may the small advantage it gives you in the marathon, it may also just then end up giving you such sore legs. But I would be very surprised if your biomechanics were in that category. So I would say that over a half marathon, we're talking between 45 seconds and 2 minutes. So also very hard. Some people, like all things, some people respond slightly better than others. But I mean, that's a significant improvement. And certainly over marathon, anywhere between 2 and 4 minutes. So, that doesn't sound like a ton, but it really is. I mean, like honestly, the difference between 301 and 259. I mean, I'm gonna take those shoes. That's for sure. So I feel like that. And of course, over the 5 and the 10, you'll be able to use those shoes there and immediately be able to tell just how much advantage you're going to get. So I would say that is a good step for you to take.
Well, that's really interesting. Okay, I'll definitely consider that. Yeah.
And especially when you're coming seventh in your age group, I've always said to people, like, I'm old school. So in some ways, the carbon shoes annoy me because we can't compare yesteryear's runners to these runners, but I can compare myself to the people I'm running against right now. And if he's in a super shoe and it's giving him 2 minutes, then I want those 2 minutes too. So that's kind of how that's.
Fair enough. Yeah, bit like the caffeine trick, right?
Yeah.
And the other specific nerdy question that I had, I've got this discussion going on with the team in the forum as well, which is cool, is the relationship between threshold pace and threshold heart rate. So I'm going to do a time trial soon to just peg where I am with that. It's been a while since I've done a dedicated threshold test. But how? So as I am a couple of years to go yet, but as I approach 60, how can I expect that relationship to change?
So it should the relationship between the two shouldn't change much. Okay. So your pace at threshold should be pretty similar. And the good thing about physiology is that it's not a specific line. We call them transitional thresholds because you're essentially doing more and more of one and not so much less and less of the other. So the aerobic actually doesn't reduce, but the total contribution does reduce because there's a bigger contribution from the anaerobic. Okay. So it's this transitional threshold that you are in. And so any small deviations are not big enough to derail the physiological outcome of the training that is set on those numbers. Okay. So I think that's an important thing to bear in mind. Now, in your case, and I had the discussion with Jamie because it was a great teaching conversation that I could have with the team. That's where we have to be. We prescribe a 5K for most people because most people are close enough to that kind of 30, 35. Some people can hold threshold a little bit longer, but if you're in that ballpark of 30 to 35, you're going to get a good enough estimation of VO2 and of threshold, and that average heart rate and the average pace of that time trial will be close enough that you can use the two fairly interchangeably. Now, in your case, based on this 127, you're going to be under 19 minutes. So your time trial is actually trending much, if you did a 5K, is trending much closer to VO2 max than it is to threshold. And so you're going to get an overestimation of your threshold. Even though I've built the algorithm to predict your pace at 5 minutes, at 30 minutes, the pace will be a few out, but the heart rate will be much harder to go, oh, well, if your heart rate is this for 20 minutes, it'll be that for 30 minutes. And for that reason, for you, it's more appropriate to be an 8K. And interestingly, just for people on the call, that's why traditionally it was an 8K time trial. Because when we first started working with thresholds, etc., breaking 30 was outstanding on an 8K time trial. In the 80s and 90s, 10K, now we're talking for elite athletes, sorry. So 10K would be more appropriate for elite athletes in the 80s and early 90s. And of course, now they're running 26, 27 minutes. So yeah, probably a 12, 11 or a 12K is more appropriate for elite athletes. But just that so people understand the evolution. So for you, that 8K, and when you're 60, as you slow down, it would be that we change the distance of the time trial to couple it closer to an approximate 30 minutes so that we could tie the heart rate and the pace in together better, or keep
Okay,
it tied in. Yeah.
So around the 30 minutes is the critical time.
Yeah.
30 minutes of intense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
in theory, it's the intensity you can hold for 30 minutes and then you put. So not an easy test to administer.
No, but yeah, but I'll do one of those in the next couple of weeks and then use that
Set
for the
everything
basic
up.
coming period. Thanks. That was
Great. Anything else?
Not at the moment. I think I'm one of those. I don't know, those people in the forum who, sometimes I can get really detailed. A couple of the times, Dev has said, I think you're maybe reading a little bit too much into this at the moment. Just
Look, data is good, and data is good, and data is understanding data is good. But yes, sometimes we can get lost in it and focus on the wrong things. I think that's really the point. Right.
Yeah.
David, thank you for your time. I
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
it very, very much.
Great to talk to you.